In other matters, a survey has found that economic pressure has led to financial insecurity and the deteriorating mental health of domestic workers. Despite a slight increase in earnings, the 7th annual SweepSouth report on pay and working conditions also highlights that domestic workers are primary breadwinners for their families. This underscores the effects of the current economic challenges, including a high interest rate as well as elevated inflation, which have had an impact on the cost of food, transport and borrowing. SweepSouth COO Luke Kannemeyer speaks to us about this. Thank you so much for your time, Luke. It's quite worrying there because we can't remove the challenges that South Africans face at a broader level. But for domestic workers, what is the scenario according to the 7th report?
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, it is rather depressing, these larger circumstances which we're beholden to. I do think there are some constructive ways we can deal with that. But to see this from the start is that, as you emphasize, it's this incredibly large employment sector within the country that has seen a 15% decrease. It hasn't recovered since it took a knock during COVID, and where these primarily women who on average have around 4 dependents who are looking to make a living, to be able to not just provide for their families. What we see in this survey is 85% of these workers would like to go on to invest further into education, into studies, into future prospects, but are unable to do so. And I think this is where we're seeing the precariousness of domestic work come through, where that worry around the risk of unemployment is feeding into increasingly high levels of mental health decline and issues, and often then leading to situations like getting in debt spirals among many workers expressed that was where they landed up as well.
Having explained the current landscape then, how do we answer a question about improving the situation, especially on the side of fair pay and working conditions that are conducive to the current climate? It is indicated in the report that there has been a slight increase in pay, but that's just not good enough.
Absolutely. As we can see here is that for as many domestic employers are facing that their costs are increasing and going through inflation, although we are seeing a degree of stabilization. I do think, though, that often what we see in this employment sector is that people don't necessarily see their domestic worker as an employee and deserving of necessarily the same benefits, the same sort of sick leave and annual leave as any other sort of employee would be in South Africa. And I think that, us really trying to understand the value in terms of our lives that as domestic worker employers that they bring to us, and that this is someone, if you're expecting annual salary reviews and increases, that you're not looking to this to be a cost that you're minimizing, but you're seeing how do you try and keep up with making sure your worker is earning fairly, and that understanding that many of those same struggles that you're going through are felt even more acutely by your worker.
Technically, the onus is on the employer here, and I'm interested in finding out your views, even with the minimum wage that South Africa has currently. What more can be done in terms of a call that is going to legitimize policy that stipulates that domestic workers enjoy the same benefits that you and I do in the professional space?
I think that's one of the most important things that's core to what we're trying to do here at SweepSouth, and is where this report came from, is that we came as a technology platform seeing an industry that hadn't been changed and tried to disrupt that. And we faced many challenging things, but saw that we could make some degree of progress. And this is where the reports are us to track ourselves against the market as a whole, to see how is it that we can use technology to make things more efficient and easier, but also push for better rates. And I think that's where you've hit the nail on the head. We have some of the best legislation in the world when it comes to the protection of domestic workers. And many people will jump to enforcement as the first step. But one thing we do see is that access is much more limited. You and I working for a formal employer, there are very easy platforms that your finance department or HR department are working with for UIF or for COIDA, occupational health and safety that domestic workers should now have access to. But as a domestic employer, those systems are not given the same priority to make it easy enough for workers to access the benefits that are enshrined in law. And then following on from that is ensuring that we do enforce those things. And I think that technology is a great enabler there, as we see with many, WhatsApp sign-up solutions for benefits at the supermarket and something like that. Why can't we do something similar with our benefits for our cleaners?
Thank you so much for your input. SweepSouth COO Luke Kannemeyer speaking to us about their latest report on domestic worker pay and basic conditions. Not looking good because a majority of them struggling to make ends meet in the current economic climate.